The tension backstage at SmackDown was unlike anything fans had seen in years. From the moment the show opened, subtle hints were dropped, whispers of unrest within the bloodline, talk of Solo Sikoa's rising dominance, and Paul Heyman's sudden nervous behavior. The dynamic that once held the bloodline together had fractured, and now, power was shifting in the most dangerous way imaginable. The tribal chief was absent, and in that vacuum, chaos had begun to breed. Paul Heyman, known for his cunning intellect and smooth manipulation, had always been the voice and mind behind the empire. But lately, things had changed. Solo Sikoa wasn't following instructions anymore. He wasn't waiting for orders. He was giving them. He was building something darker, more violent, and more unpredictable, his own army of loyal soldiers, the MFTs. These men weren't talkers, they were enforcers, men who moved in silence but spoke volumes through intimidation. Wherever Solo went, the MFTs followed like shadows. Together, they were rewriting what the bloodline stood for. Backstage cameras picked up Heyman pacing in his private area, clutching his phone tightly. His face was pale, sweat glistening on his forehead under the harsh fluorescent lights. The air around him felt heavy, almost suffocating. You could hear the unease in his voice as he spoke into the phone. "I need to reach him," he whispered urgently. "Solo's not listening anymore, he's making moves on his own." But before Heyman could continue, he froze. The hallway lights flickered, a slow hum filling the air. He turned his head slightly, and there they were. Solo Sikoa, standing at the far end of the corridor, his eyes locked on Heyman. Behind him stood 3 MFTs, dressed in black, arms folded, their expressions empty but dangerous. The silence was deafening. Every step Solo took echoed through the hallway like the ticking of a clock counting down to disaster. Heyman swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. "Solo. My tribal heir," he said weakly, forcing a nervous smile. But Solo didn't respond. His face remained expressionless, his eyes cold. The MFTs fanned out, slowly surrounding Heyman, cutting off any possible escape route. It was clear this wasn't a friendly visit, this was a confrontation long overdue. Solo's voice broke the silence. It was calm, but it carried the weight of authority. "Paul," he said. "You've been talking too much." Heyman immediately began to backpedal, his words stumbling over themselves. "Solo, please, I'm doing what's best for the family." But Solo interrupted, stepping closer until he was inches from Heyman's face. "The family?" he said with a low growl. "You mean my family now?" Those words hit Heyman like a thunderbolt. It was no longer about Roman Reigns. Solo wasn't positioning himself as an heir anymore, he was taking the throne by force. The MFTs loomed closer, their presence suffocating. One of them slammed a fist into his palm, another cracked his neck, their movements synchronized like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. Heyman's breathing grew shallow. "You were loyal," Solo continued. "But loyalty doesn't mean trust. And right now, Paul, I don't trust you." The camera zoomed in on Heyman's trembling hands clutching his phone. The veins in his forehead pulsed as panic set in. "Solo, I've been loyal since day one. You know that," he pleaded. But Solo's stare didn't soften. He took another step forward, forcing Heyman against the wall. The MFTs closed in even tighter. "You've been making calls," Solo said, his voice barely above a whisper but filled with menace. "You've been talking to people outside the family. You've been trying to control what you can't control." Heyman shook his head frantically. No, Solo, I swear." Solo grabbed him by the collar, pulling him close enough that Heyman could feel his breath. "Don't lie to me," Solo snapped. "I hear everything that happens in this building. I know who you talk to. I know what you said about me." The MFT stepped closer, and one of them leaned in near Heyman's ear, whispering something inaudible but clearly threatening. Heyman's eyes darted between them, his heart pounding. "Solo, please, we can fix this," he said desperately. "You don't understand. I was only trying to." Solo shoved him back against the wall, the impact echoing down the corridor. Trying to what? He demanded. Save me? Control me? Replace me? Heyman didn't respond. He couldn't. His words had failed him. His voice, the one thing that always gave him power, was gone. He was cornered, stripped of authority, standing before the monster he helped create. Solo took a step back, breathing heavily, his anger slowly morphing into a chilling calm. From now on, he said, his tone icy, everything goes through me. Every message, every decision, every plan. You speak when I tell you to. You move when I say so. Heyman nodded quickly, desperate to appease him. Why yes, Solo. Whatever you say. Solo tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. Say it right, he ordered. Heyman hesitated. Solo's eyes narrowed. Say it. Heyman's lips quivered. Yes, my tribal heir. The MFTs exchanged smirks, the power dynamic now fully established. Solo stood tall, nodding slightly as if approving the submission. Good, he said quietly. Remember this moment, Paul. Because if you ever step out of line again, he snapped his fingers, and one of the MFTs slammed his fist into a nearby crate, splintering it in half. You won't walk out of this building. Solo turned around slowly, his demeanor calm but commanding. He motioned for his men to follow, and together they disappeared into the shadows of the hallway. The camera lingered on Heyman, slumped against the wall, breathing heavily, his eyes filled with terror and disbelief. The once powerful wise man was now nothing more than a pawn in Solo Sikoa's game. Moments later, backstage officials rushed over to check on him, but Heyman waved them off weakly. I'm fine, he muttered, though his voice said otherwise. He straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure, but his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. For the first time in years, Paul Heyman wasn't the one pulling the strings. He was trapped in the web of a monster he helped empower. As the broadcast continued, commentary replayed the footage with shock. Paul Heyman has just been threatened by Solo Sikoa and his new faction, the MFTs, one commentator said. This could be the end of the bloodline as we know it. The audience online erupted with speculation. Was Solo planning to dethrone Roman completely? Was Paul still loyal, or was he already plotting his escape? The world was watching, and SmackDown had become the battleground for a power struggle that would shape the future of WWE. Backstage later that night, cameras caught Heyman again, sitting alone in his locker room. The once proud advisor was now a shell of himself. He stared at his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen. The name Roman Reigns was visible in his contacts, but he didn't press call. He hesitated, his expression torn between loyalty and fear. What if he doesn't pick up, he whispered to himself. What if it's already too late? Suddenly, the door creaked open. Heyman jumped, his eyes darting toward the entrance. But it was only one of the MFTs, the same one who had cracked his knuckles earlier. He didn't speak, he just handed Heyman a folded piece of paper and walked away. Heyman unfolded it, his hands trembling. On the note were just 3 words, stay in line. That message sent chills down his spine. Solo's control was absolute, even when he wasn't there, his presence was felt. Heyman put the note down, leaned back, and closed his eyes. He whispered softly, what have I done? The segment cut back to Solo Sikoa later that night. He was seen in the Bloodline's private locker room, sitting in Roman Reigns' chair, his head bowed, his fingers tapping against the armrest. The MFTs stood guard behind him, silent and watchful. Solo finally looked up, staring into the camera. His expression was cold, unbothered, and confident. The Bloodline doesn't need a voice, he said slowly. It needs a leader. The screen faded to black as those words echoed across the arena. The message was unmistakable, the age of Paul Heyman's influence was over. The era of Solo Sikoa had begun. Over the following hours, WWE social media exploded with speculation. Fans flooded Twitter, TikTok, and and Instagram with reactions. Some praised Solo for stepping up as the true successor to the tribal chief, calling it the rise of a new dynasty. Others were horrified by his brutal takeover, describing him as the Bloodline's silent storm. Memes, clips, and analysis videos flooded every corner of the internet. The segment trended worldwide within minutes. Meanwhile, reports began to circulate that Paul Heyman had left the arena immediately after the show ended, escorted by security. Some insiders claimed he was seen talking to Adam Pearce, possibly filing a complaint. Others said he had booked an emergency flight out of the city. No one knew the truth. What everyone knew, however, was that the relationship between Heyman and Solo Sikoa had reached a dangerous breaking point. In the following SmackDown exclusive, WWE released unseen footage from after the broadcast. It showed Solo pacing the locker room while his MFTs discussed strategy. One of them asked, "What about the wise man?" Solo stopped and looked at him. "He'll fall in line," he said coldly. "Or he'll fall altogether." Those words confirmed what fans already suspected: Solo wasn't interested in coexistence. He wanted domination. The Bloodline, once a symbol of unity, had become a battlefield ruled by fear and silence. The aura that Roman Reigns built through respect and intimidation was now being replaced by something darker, pure chaos under Solo Sikoa's rule. Paul Heyman's future was uncertain. For years, he had managed some of the greatest champions in history, manipulating and guiding careers from behind the scenes. But this time, he had no control. He was no longer the mastermind, he was the target. And in WWE, when you lose the trust of a monster like Solo Sikoa, survival becomes a matter of seconds. The episode ended with one final shot: Solo standing under the SmackDown logo, his face illuminated by the dim blue light, the MFTs forming a wall behind him. He looked directly into the camera and said, "The Bloodline belongs to me now." Those words sealed his declaration of power, sending a shockwave through the entire WWE universe. Paul Heyman, once the voice of authority, had been silenced. The rise of Solo Sikoa had officially begun, and SmackDown would never be the same again.